Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Instagram as Skeindeer. I am Skeindeer Knits as a designer on Ravelry. I've got lots of knitting patterns on there. And yeah, it's been a minute. To new viewers, hello. This is where I sit and talk about knitting every once in a while. And to returning viewers, hi. I am in a different room. I'm in my bedroom because I am tired and the lighting conditions here are a lot better. However, that does mean I have to sacrifice on audio because there's currently nothing on the walls in here. I haven't really worked on the living room as much as the rest of the flat. And I will address that at the very end of the episode. But for now, this is my co-host Embla, and we are just gonna dive straight into the knitting because I have in fact been knitting for a bit. I actually didn't touch knitting since February until sometime this summer. It's very unusual for me. I knit some stitches at least every day, but yeah, no, I just didn't. I got really into embroidery. I always think it's important to not push your hobby. Hey sweetie, yeah? Oh, thank you. You get a dog and you think, I'll never let my dog lick my face, and then you just capitulate, to be honest. Anyway, my first finished object. This is one of my own designs that you may remember. I did have a white sample of the photos where I made primarily a yellow sample of the listening shawl, but that sample was my mother's and I wanted a white shawl all to myself, and so I cast one on in, was it like 2018 give or take? I don't remember, and just didn't really get very far for no good reason. I just have too many projects going, we all know this. But yeah, it's a bottom up Faroese style shawl, and I had got, you know, start off with lots of stitches and you decrease basically, so I sat there with a bunch of stitches, having not even started the lace section yet, so it's just lots of garter. So in that sense it was pretty inviting to pick back up, and I did, and it is done. Ta-da-ta-da-da. I have blocked it. I had to think about that, but yeah, it looks so much nicer after it's been blocked, because garter and lace, oof, they really take to blocking. I always like to tell this story, a bit of an anecdote, that for the longest time in my early knitting days, and I knitted for years and years and years, I didn't know about blocking. So I was watching, this was back in the days of blogs and people were posting their knittings on blogs, and I just couldn't believe how nice their colour work was, how nice everything they were making, and my lace was all crumpled up, and I think it was pretty close to the time I started this podcast in 2016 that I had actually learned about blocking. And yeah, and I don't think it needs to be more complicated than a soak in water and drying either in the shape you wanted, pinning if it's like lace or something that needs a bit of stretch. Most things I think, just as long as you get the water out and it's in a nice enough configuration so you don't get any drying marks, then, you know, get nice relaxed fabric. And yeah, it's quite big. I think this one turned out bigger than the yellow one, and if memory serves right, which I think I could be forgiven for not remembering for the past 7 years, I think I used a bigger needle size to get a slightly bigger shawl, which is something I instruct in the pattern. So ta-da, 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 and it's finally got cooler in London, so I can actually wear my knits out and about, although most out and about for me these days is in the dog park, and the dogs jump up and make you filthy and pull on the stitches, so I need to mostly just wear knitting here and up. I gotta be careful. Bigger shawls and things you're quite precious about, maybe not it. That's my life these days. This little being here is running my life. I'm doing my best so that she doesn't also run this podcast, and I'm sure many of you would be quite happy if she did. She's actually turning, what, 1 year and 5 months today, I think, or tomorrow. I don't know what date it is. I am self-employed, I don't know anything. But yes, the yarn I used, I actually didn't use a Norwegian yarn for a change. I used Shetland yarn. I used Jameson & Smith 2-ply jumper weight, which is one of my earliest favourite yarns. So it is quite similar to the yarns I often talk about, like Lerma Finul, but it is a bit finer. And so yeah, this probably would have been a bit thicker had I used the yarn that I used for loosening, which was a more sort of sport weight. And this is definitely just ballpark of fingering weight yarn. Maybe on the lighter, I would say just fingering. So yeah, all of this lace you're working in just the yarn over and knit two together. There might be the odd knit three together depending, but yeah, generally those are the only two stitches you need to know. You don't need to try to mirror decreases when you're doing garter because it just won't show, so it's just not worth the faff. And that's just the whole shaping, and it does have this like really neat like wing shape. You can see it's not a triangle, not just because of the sort of center spine, but because of, well, let me show you one wing, how that kind of comes in together as like a very rounded shape. It's not a triangle because there's a lot of decreases happening right in the center of the garter here. So you almost have like, you know, like when you're doing a half circle shawl, it's almost as if each wing is doing something like that, and you get this like really nice wing shape with it's not a straight line like this, which you would get with a V-shaped shawl. It gets a bit like this. And for me, I like all these sort of symmetrical shawl shapes, but I really like this one because you get a really good wingspan to throw around your neck that doesn't end up being too deep in the front. And you can get the opposite problem with like a crescent shaped shawl where you get a very long wingspan but it's not a lot of depth in the front, and I like being able to balance it out with the Faroese shape, and that's what I did here. So yeah, this is a oldie but goodie pattern of mine, nothing to write home about. I didn't change the pattern or anything. I simply followed my own little instructions, and that's that. I did tassels on this. I don't think I did tassels on the yellow sample. That's sort of my main sample. It's really easy to do tassels if you have leftover yarns, which I just didn't for that shawl. But if you have leftover yarns, a little bit goes a long way. You just take 2 strands of yarn. I mean, there's more details in the pattern, and you pull those through the sort of every other gap between the stitches that you cast on, and that little loop that you get, you pull those strings through, so you have 4 strings per. There are videos for this, but yeah, it was very easy for me to remind myself how to do this. And yeah, nice little ivory off-white, just natural white color. I never pick straight up white yarn anymore. I just always go with natural white, off-white, ivory, ecru, whatever you want to call it. I just love that more. Something about that bleached look that I'm selective about. I'm not saying never, I'm selective about it. Leave it to Embla to go just outside the frame. And the next finished object that I wanted to talk about is kind of the primary reason that I'm making this episode, and that's because I am actually heading to Norway in not too long, because I have made my baby nephew a sweater for his birthday. Do you mind? And I asked my sister, I haven't seen him in 1.5 years. I'm so excited to see him. And I asked her, what is he into these days? And she says, space and insects. And I want to knit him something, and my sister's actually quite optimistic about that because that kid has enough toys and isn't one of those like, I don't want to wear knitting yet. Anyway, fingers crossed. So I've always thought I wanted to make him a Marius jumper. Shock to no one watching this, at least if you've been there a few times. But when he said space and insects, I had to do the Space Invaders Marius. It's not the official name. So a bit of history here before I show you the item. This is a fairly, no, I shouldn't call things old just because it's like 10-15 years ago. Arne and Carlos designs that they call Cheese Attack. I think probably for legal reasons it's perhaps not the best idea to call it either Marius or Space Invaders. So it's called Cheese Attack, but it's definitely taken elements from the Marius and the Cortina. I'm not going to get into that debate right now. They said Cortina, I say Marius. Different companies, different intellectual properties. And they put the Space Invaders aliens on, which kind of look like bugs depending on how you view it, but I was going for the space vibes. And it's a really, really cool design, but it is a design for adults. Well, I say that the only pattern I was able to get my mitts on was for adults. I do think they did a collection for Dale yarn. I am not able to get that when I'm here in the UK, so I don't really know much about that one. They didn't really look like what I was going for anyway when I was looking at the pictures. And in terms of the adult pattern where I got the charts from, I don't think it's up for sale anymore, and I'm certainly not comfortable saying how you can get your mitts on it illegally, but personally, with a few just simple Google searches, it's out there in public. It's not that hard to get. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I took the charts from the adult Cheese Attack sweater by Arne and Carlos and just put it in my little Excel worksheet where I make my own patterns and sizes and everything, and graded it for all kids sizes, just so I knew that I had a good sort of baseline, and I picked the size that I thought was going to be the best fit for my nephew and something to grow into as well. I don't want him to just wear it one winter and that be it. And see which of the charts I could fit in, if I was going to do the exact same or take a few out, so shorten them, make them smaller, and I did some of that. So without further ado, okay, so yeah, that's basically it. So there's a lot to say about how I got this, and because I am in no legal creative position to be publicizing my work on someone else's design that is based on also an earlier design that has some red tape around it, I am just going to describe as well as I possibly can how I did this. So if you want to do the same, I believe in you and I will try to help you along the way with this episode. Okay, so first of all, I used Hillesvåg Tinde. This is, I have been calling this a DK weight yarn, I think, but it is leaning on the sport weight side. So this is their navy weight color. When they introduced this yarn, they mostly made it in kind of like pastel baby shades, because it is a lamb's wool, 100% lamb's wool, and the idea is that that's for babies in Norway, and I think it is for everyone. Thank you very much. It is the best compromise in my mind between, you know, reducing the itch factor, but also getting something that is good in color work, that is good if you need to steek, and all of that jazz, you know. So I had to use this because I found myself having this yarn in like 3 different dye lots, meaning it's a little bit tough to be using for an adult, and so when using it for a 5-year-old, it's a win. Here are my 3 colors, nothing shocking here. I am actually on the second skein of blue yarn, which was good because I only had 2 of this particular dye lot, and that would have been a different dye lot that I had just 1 skein of. But the good news is now I'm left with a full sweater quantity dye lot for me, so it was worthwhile in the end. I probably only need 1 sweater quantity at the time, right? So yeah, that was the use of the yarn, not too much. And so, construction. I did so kind of a top-down cast on where I did each, I think I shorter shaped the back neck. Either that or I did increases, I'm not entirely sure, but I like to dip the back neck just a little bit. For adults, I do about 1 inch, but you can see here, there is a slight dip from the shoulders down the neck here. And then I did that back and forth actually until I got to the color work bit, put that aside and did 1 front back and forth here and 1 front back and forth here. And then I joined in the round, making a steek for the armholes and for the front neck. And the reason I did it that way is I didn't think it was worthwhile to have a back neck steek just when doing stockinette. And I also find sometimes that when doing steeks all the way from the top of the shoulder to all the way to the underarm, I just end up kind of pulling things when it's at that joint, and it's not a huge risk or anything, but considering this was stockinette and I could avoid it if I just started the steek just down here, I have that little bit of leeway if I need to pull and stretch anything without ruining anything to do with the steek. This is very nitpicky, you don't need to think this detailed. Point is, I started top down, had a steek for the front neck and each armhole, and worked in the round. And I made sure that the charts were adding up here, but I think also if you know that all this is going to be armhole all the way down here, you don't need to worry about anything until you get to the big space invaders. You'll notice I have made them a lot smaller if you've ever seen the original Anna and Carlos design, because theirs again is for adult men and they're quite big space invaders, and there's a lot long floats. I don't particularly want long floats for a kid going to wear it, stick their little grubby fingers in there and get it all in the floats. You know, I think it was better to have smaller space invaders, also on a smaller garment. Not really much fuss there. You can see other people in Ravelry have done the same thing. It's not a very original idea. So that's that. Just carried on all the way down. I think I made this size what I call like a 9 to 10-year-old size, because he's already a couple of sizes ahead of his age, and I want it to be a couple of sizes ahead of what he is now, so that it will last. So yeah, it's clearly a lot bigger than a 5-year-old, but oh well. So then the rest of the body is really just pretty straightforward, knitting in the round. I haven't blocked it yet, so you can see the rib here is pulling. This will be a lot more relaxed after blocking, but yeah. Because of that whole story where I didn't know about blocking in my early color work days and I kept knitting Marius, I knit the most even Marius tension. It's only for this colorwork pattern, or I guess related one as well with Space Invaders, because I just thought that's what people did. I didn't know they blocked it, so I almost don't need to block my Marius knitting because it just comes out very even. But I would like to block out the upper arms just because they need it, quite frankly. I want to make sure he can get his arms in. There was a bit of back and forth with the sleeves. I'd actually done the full charts for the sleeves. I don't think I included the big Space Invaders now that I think about it, but everything else I'd included all the way. And then I had done the decreases a lot earlier. So by the time I was here, it was so snug. And I've learned this through knitting, you know, adult size stuff, and especially in the smaller end of the size range, that you really just don't want to start decreasing until you're way down here, because the way that arms are shaped, again, the smaller the size, they're just kind of just more straight, and you don't really need to decrease until you're past the bicep and closer to the elbow. And so I just let myself finish the color work entirely before I decreased anything, and that worked out pretty well. I'm way happier with that. I would like to block this out just to make sure it's not tight around the arms, but I know I've added more inches, a couple of inches at least, to the body upper arm circumference, so we should be good on that front. But I ended up, once I knitted the sleeves for a second time, to just skip all the aliens, so both the weird squid spaceship and everything. So I'm not crazy about it because it feels like this red line is too far down, close to that little zigzag. This is just me, like, having done so much Marius knitting over the years that I think that's wrong, but nobody would know. He wouldn't care. My sister was like, just do the sleeves blue, he doesn't care. And I'm like, yeah, but I care. So I did the other sleeve the same way, naturally, and that's that. It was a pretty quick knit. I mean, Marius is usually off for me, and I have even bothered to tack down the steeks here because, again, it's going to be worn by a kid who may not take so much care, so I've just stitched through the steek. And should we talk a bit about steeking? So I'm kind of assuming that people have been along for the ride, me talking about steeks before, but if not, Vera Pink Knits has a very good excuse you, a very good knitting tutorial about steeking without any sewing machine or anything like that. I always recommend that one. I don't think I could have made one better myself, so that's one to go and check out. But assuming we know that, I like to make my steeks like a purl stitch, 3 knit stitches and a purl stitch, and the purl stitches are already from the knitting before you make a steek, so that would have been your selvage if you were working flat. So you're really just adding 3 stitches, meaning you'll only have 1.5 stitch extra fabric on each side after cutting. So that's not too much bulk. I really like that. So I find that that first and last purl stitch to mark the selvage, and so I can see the steek clearly, often gets a bit bigger. Like, a lot of us, we purl a bit looser than knit, and the way that we pull stitches are different when we purl and when we knit. So my purl stitches are a little bit bigger, and it's very annoying when I'm picking up stitches along there for the sleeves. Can end up getting some gaps. I mean, I usually don't, but I overthink things. So, you know, what I did this time is that after I had made the steeks before the cut, I pulled, so you normally when you do that, you get like a ladder between the two sort of crochet steek columns, and I pulled each and every ladder, so all those strands, whether they were the main color or the background color, like whatever, and so they were as wide as I could make them, so there was a big gap where I could cut. And they were pulling from that purl stitch on each side, and so I could sort of tighten that gap where I'm picking up stitches, so it looks really neat here. And I had a lot more of each of the yarns sticking out from those crochet columns, so I'm definitely sure they're not going to come and slip through, which they probably won't anyway, because that's the whole point of the technique. But you just have like an added security by giving them a bit more length. And especially when you're doing the first couple of rounds, when you're picking up stitches, if you do that after cutting, you could do it before, can't recommend, you're just risking a lot less of things coming undone, which shouldn't happen anyway, but if you like to be careful. That was a really neat trick. I think I might continue doing that. I love just adding little improvements to my sleek journey. I can't say anything with a straight face, but yeah, so that's his present. I'm gonna give this either a soak or a steam or something. Most likely a soak, because I still haven't bought a iron board. Only have an iron that I can't use because it needs an ironing board. Anyway, I thought I'd show you the original Marius as well, in case any of you don't know it. This is my cardigan that I wear pretty often. It does have a slight little hole here that I need to mend. Hello. Also the neckline, I think I just grafted it on a little bit too tight, so that one I have needed to be fixed since I first made this. But yeah, so that's what the Marius normally looks like. And that's the Space Invaders Marius. You have a reference. Again, I say Space Invaders. Online colours will tell you that I'm wrong, and that is the Cortina by Dale. It's because there were two competitors back in the 50s. They each did their own version. They look very similar, and there's a big hot debate about who was first, and I will get into that, but not in this episode. That's my disclaimer. I feel like I've talked a little bit too fast and got through a lot of things very quickly. I thought I had so many things to go through because it's been such a long time. I hope you guys have been well, by the way. It's just been forever. But yeah, we're already getting to my works in progress. I actually picked up an old whip. When I found myself just not knitting on anything at all, I thought, well, I might as well finish one of my many whips that just are languishing and needs, again, some structuring and organising and photographing and updating my Ravelry. But so I picked up the Eleanor cardigan by Pinne Gudi, a Norwegian designer who I've talked about many times on here. And I made the Eleanor cardigan back when I was 25 years old, and I wore it a lot, and it's just a little bit small on me right now. I'm 10 years older, and that's just life, and I wanted another one. And ever since I made that grey one in superwash, baby merino, like, you know, it's not quite my choice of wool. I've always wanted one in bright red woolly wools, and that's what I worked on. So I started this one 4 years ago. This was beginning of lockdown. Okay, let's talk about the yarn first. I picked PT2. This is a discontinued yarn from PT that have now been since bought by Roma. Roma have their own Finul yarn, which is why they for a while called it Finul PT2, because they sort of merged the yarns, even though they weren't the same yarns. This had 10 meters less, so it was a little bit more plump, had a different color range that we have now lost, and I'm not mad about it at all. No. But I want to use up the yarn that I have by them. Even though it's precious, you'll never be able to get it again. Yarn is meant to be knitted with, so I have done that. And this is the Eleanor, obviously not blocked yet. It has a lot of lace and stuff happening on the front, so, and texture and many things. So that will look wonderful once it's been blocked. So this is a top-down contiguous cardigan. Was actually my introduction to the contiguous construction method, where you basically work the back and the shoulders as just one long kind of shoulder piece. You get like a little seam here. You can have even a little bit of a saddle panel here if you like, and then you start increasing for the sleeves as you're working all of this contiguously. It's just really neat. And because I got so much wear out of the grey one that I had, I feel like my wardrobe needs a bright red one. Because again, I'm probably not the only one knitter that thinks like this, but I just think that I am such a colourful person when I knit, when in reality I wear like 99% black clothing. In fact, I felt really weird coming on camera wearing like all blue today, because it's just so far away from my like comfort zone. But this is a very handy skirt to wear when you go to the dog park and they jump up on you with their muddy paws, and I would rather receive dog love and be a bit muddy than caring about, you know, how it shows on black clothes. So I'll probably have a costume change before I go to knit night tonight. But yeah, that's anything else. I mean, why is it not done, really? This is a fairly good question. By the way, this yarn is just so I can measure the sleeve length easily, although I am done with the sleeves now. But lately I've been wanting longer sleeves. I don't know what's happening there, if my arms have grown or what that is, but yeah, no, the reason I haven't just done the last bit of moss stitch for the bottom and bound off is that I get some hang-ups about lengths of garments sometimes. So you can see here I actually have two circulars on, so I can try this on. And I don't know, it's been a long time since I did that, because I tend to know my preferred lengths at this point. If I do it around, you know, 30 centimeters from the underarm, usually I do 28 if it's raglan or yoke, and if it's more of a satin sleeve or drop shoulder, I tend to do 30 to 33 centimeters, I think, unless I want it to be longer, obviously. But that's sort of my preferred length, given I only wear skirts and dresses. I want this to be a bit shorter. I think it would look really cute in one of my polka dot dresses, just going straight to the waist. But I also know that when you try on top down knitting, it is very good to still add an inch or two to what feels like the right length when you have it on your needles. I don't know why, but it's just always been the case for me. It's a bit of a word of advice there. I'm just now thinking, do I want it to be cropped, or do I want to just sit a little bit over the hips, just a couple of inches, to not like feel like I'm getting cold around my waist when I lift my arms, anything like that. So I started overthinking that, and that's where it's currently sitting like this. And I guess next time I'm wearing the right sort of outfit to try it on, I will do that and make a decision. But for now, it's a happy knit project. But yeah, I was alluding a bit to this earlier when I said I cast this on early days in lockdown, and I am a bit like, I don't understand my choice of sizes. I think I wanted it to be close to the size I had done many years ago because it fits so well around the shoulders. However, I am also making a new one because that is a too small size for me now. So I must have had some thoughts about maybe increasing under the arms. So I have done that. But even increasing under the arms, it is still a bit tight. That being said, it is lace in the front. So if that stretches over the bust, it's actually quite nice. And it will end up being also quite sort of fitted around the waist. I don't have the hugest bust waist ratio anyway, so that's actually pretty nice for me. I think, yeah, I think that will work itself out. It's knit fabric, it's forgiving, and you don't always have to shape knit fabric, so I'm actually not putting in any shaping here. There's no decreasing from bust to waist. I don't think I'll have to. It'll just be, yeah, a bit stretched by the bust, and I think with the lace that will just look nice. We'll see when I finally get around to maybe do some photos or something. But yeah, I have to laugh at past me who cast this on. I mean, I've been many sizes since, but back then I was the same as now, so I still don't understand the thinking there. I don't. Isn't she the best? I don't really know what's happening here. I think she's a bit scared of the tripod in the window. She's very like a routine animal. If anything is out of the ordinary, she's a bit like, I don't know about this. Like when I'm fixing up anything in the flat, yeah, she's like, oh, it's not how it normally is. But yeah, no, she's a good one. Embla's good, if anyone was wondering. But I do have a lot more to talk about. I mean, there's only one work in progress really, which is just my go-to stockinette socks. I thought I'd include them just because, you know, being accountable and what have you. So yeah, I just been bringing these sometimes to the dog park if dog's allowing. I'm getting through these West Yorkshire Spinners. But yeah, not much to say about that. Oh, forgot about this. I was doing a kind of brioche swatch with some Tinde by Hillesvåg. It's a bit loose, but yeah, and I've been exploring like the differences between brioche and fisherman's rib and all of those things, and what it means when you're doing a fake version of each. And if I think I've cracked the code now, so if and when I might do a garment with that, I'm still deciding. I got a really nice sweater quantity of this Hillesvåg yarn, the pelt wool, the nice green pelt wool, and I want to do a garment. And that's all I know so far. So whether I do brioche rib or some other rib, we'll find out. You'll find out when I find out. I'm like very conscious that the tripod is so high up because it's literally on its lowest legs right now. It's just that the windowsill is so much higher up. So maybe I'll have to go and get a new tripod. One that's... oh well, who cares? I have got some acquisitions, and I've got some embroidery, and I've got some embroidery acquisitions. So I think I'll do it in this order. I talk about embroidery works in progress. I'll talk about the yarn acquisitions. That's probably, you know, for you knitters out there. And I'll talk about the technically embroidery acquisitions, but it's more to do with home decor than a thing I've made. There'll be more yarns, but I'll just talk a little bit about what I've been stitching since last time. I got this kit. It's the Strawberry Thief cushion cover kit. Now I say kit, it didn't actually come with the whole like making the cushion, sewing it, which might as well honestly because I can't sew anyway, so that's a problem for future me. But right now I'm just working on this sofa cushion cover. I have the exact same pattern for Embla's dog bed and a runner in the hallway and I think a coaster in the kitchen. So I guess I'm just kind of committed to the bit here. Even my IKEA bedspreads are kind of like inspired, I think, by William Morris. So this is the Strawberry Thief pattern. And this is a kit from Bothy Threads. I didn't know that, but yeah, called Bothy Threads. They have lots of good video tutorials as well. They have kits, different patterns. Yeah, I can recommend. I've had a lot of fun with this. However, I haven't touched this all summer. So when I'm looking at this now, I am almost as fresh to it as you are. So I'm gonna have to remind myself as we go along here. Yeah, a lot of memories are coming back. I'm gonna show you sort of where I'm at right now. So I actually got a whole frame. She really doesn't like the frame. I think a couple of you have recommended me getting a frame as well, because when I was making the bell pull and the cushion cover from an old vintage pattern from Norway, I was just holding the fabric in my lap and stitching that way, and that was fine. But I am also enjoying using this frame, at least for this pattern. The stitching is a lot finer, and there is a print on this canvas that you can see, which wasn't the case when I was stitching the vintage patterns. I just worked with a completely blank slate, and I just had to count, and it went well, but ooh, it was quite intimidating putting in the first stitch there, whereas here is a lot more guidance that you get. So I have made so much, there's much here under the scroll sort of roll back here that I would show you, but I'm actually need to remind future me that I'm working further down, and I'm trying to use up all the smaller colors first so that I know how much I've used, but then we'll get to the dark blue and fill in everything towards the end. And I'm probably closer to finished than I think I am, but I had done a fair share, and then I just put it down for no really particular reason. I mean, that's kind of what I do, right? I get like 40, 50, 60% through a project and I put it down. That's, we've been here, we know this. But yeah, so I have some nitpicking about this pattern that you might want to know before you go and get one. Even if you get it anyway, like, it's just good to know. And I think this is normal. I don't think this is an issue with this kit or anything. I've talked to a couple of people that do this a lot, and it seems to be something just to expect, that the print here doesn't exactly align with the grid of the fabric. Meaning sometimes you have to just like improvise a little bit, skip a row, accept that, okay, that row now is not, you know, further up, maybe add a row, maybe move a column here and there. I have to do this quite a lot. And so the birds that I did up here, they're more like cousins than twins, really. They're not exactly the same. And I expect that'll happen when I get to these two birds as well. It is what it is. So that's just because it's very, very hard to print on canvas and get it to align exactly with the intersections where you stitch into. You know, there are pros and cons to working with or without a printed canvas. And if you find that that makes it actually more frustrating to work with than not, you can simply flip it around and stitch into the white backside instead. The other thing is that I started this at the very bottom, and then I've just been working up more and more details further up as I've gone along. And now that I'm looking back at my early things, especially in the blue here, I don't like it. It's not as neat and as even as it was later. This looks like super even, and this is all bumpy and weird and loose and tight, and I just hadn't worked in my tension yet. So that I think I may try to undo. However, undoing this type of I haven't done this in months. I totally forgot all the jargon and everything, but you make just diagonal stitches. But yeah, they have videos for all of this stuff. So point is that it's just very difficult to undo. You probably just have to like cut through the back and just get rid of all that yarn, and it's not really repurposable. And that is annoying because it is a kit, so I may not have enough for this light blue. So I just really want to finish everything in light blue before I know whether I can afford to get rid of some of this and restitch it with new blue yarn. I don't remember if there was much else to say about this. Like I said, it's just been forever since I worked on it. It's been a really nice sort of change of pace from knitting and having this as well. I mean, it's a lot more comfortable working on knitting. I'm gonna say that, like having this like frame on my lap and like working over it, it's not the most comfortable, and it's definitely not travel friendly. When I was working on the other embroidery stuff, I could travel with it a lot because I just had it, I didn't have it on a frame. So there's a pro to not using a frame as well, and for that type of stitch I was actually quite happy not using a frame. The things you learn along the way when picking up a new craft. And so yeah, that's all that I have been stitching. So what we have left to talk about now is my acquisitions. I have indeed been buying some yarn, but I've actually been pretty good considering I haven't made an episode since I don't remember in the spring. I have only been going and shopping for yarn once, if we don't count all the embroidery yarn. We don't count embroidery yarn. I went to Teddington where they have the yarn shop Knit, which I swear of all the yarn shops that I have been to in London, now I haven't been to all of them yet. They keep coming and going, so you gotta keep up all the time. I will say that Knit is the closest I've been to a sort of proper Scandinavian yarn shop. Doesn't mean they have all my favorites, but they do have the things you expect to find in a sort of regular commercial yarn shop in Norway. You find, and Denmark too, I think they have quite similar stuff. There's Filcolana, there's Sandnes yarn, they have the booklets and patterns and the different, you know, yarn qualities and good color range, and there's more stuff online and in the shop, so, you know, wink wink. They're really nice there as well. I enjoy going out there. Teddington's a lovely town and just a good trip overall. And I went with my local knitting group, and I may have done some damage. I may have like got a little bit ahead of myself because, guys, You know, I have been working with the yarn Line by Sandnes. They are probably my favorite sort of summer yarn, being a blend of cotton, viscose and linen. It's really nice and soft. It's not one of those linens that you need to kind of beat up quite a bit. It's quite forgiving to work with, and I have just had a bit of a gripe with the colours. They're very pastel-y, except for some that are very nice grey. I think they also had a black, which isn't ideal in the summer, but try and stop me. I used to be a goth. However, I'm excited to announce that they have now burgundy. The colours aren't great in this very light and dark setup I have. I will admit you can't really see it too well. I'm gonna cover my face with it so you can see it while I'm going on about how perfect this burgundy is. So obviously it's well into September at this point. I am reveling in the fact that it's quite chilly. I won't be casting on anytime soon, but having it here, given Teddington is quite far away from me, certainly is good to have when inspiration strikes, and I will feel like maybe designing a summer garment or maybe knitting someone else's design. I keep trying to like knit other people's designs as well, because knitting is first and foremost my hobby, and I like to keep it as such, and know also sort of, you know, I don't want to not know what it's like to be knitting someone else's pattern and yeah, what's happening in knitting and all that. You know, I like being a regular schmegular knitter as well. So yeah, got just a small sort of summer top quantity. I don't know if it was exactly enough, but we'll find out. So that was that. But I also ended up with a lot of Peer Gynt. Forgive me for not taking it out of its vacuum sealed bag. Vacuum, I say, the ears come back out. This is the Packmate bags that I have sworn by, but I will say they don't stand super airtight for long, but they're still perfectly moth proof, so I still use them because they're very good for that. So I got lots of burgundy, it's the exact same burgundy shade as Lena, and I got some nice sort of cream color, I guess, like a very, very, very light brown. I have some color work on the horizon. I'm gonna do some other like nice thick garment like kosekofte, which is hanging over here in a different room, but I wear that cardigan all the time. It's held up so well. There's not a single like hole or anything, like compared to my rather more loose knit Marius here. Like that Peer Gynt cardigan that's knit so tight, it's worsted weight yarn in like what I would call a sport weight gauge. It is held up, so I am very eager to knit myself something else with that. However, kosekofte is a coat. It's very long. I literally wear it like an outer jacket. It goes down to the edge of my skirt, and so I would like to have something like that, but just a bit shorter. Just for different options, different occasions. So I'm still just thinking about what I might do, but it's getting some inspiration from the fit and the durability of my kosekofte and whatever else I want to do with burgundy. I just love the combination of burgundy and cream. It's like berries with custard. There's something about it. I don't know. It's just so yeah, I am still very much in the space of enjoying knitting from stash. That doesn't mean I'm not going to be talking about yarn or like buying more yarn. I am, you know, scheduled to go to Norway not too long. First time in a year and a half. I haven't gone this long since COVID, to be honest, without going home. So expect there to be maybe a little bit of yarn pinching here and there. Maybe buy a couple of skeins. Yeah, I was gonna say a couple of sweater quantities. No, just one, maybe two. The last bit of acquisitions, I wasn't sure whether to include, but since I have already been talking about embroidery and I've had people, you know, ask me to talk about other crafts since the day I started this podcast, I feel, so I have bought some things to decorate this room with because there's so much echo. Don't know if you can tell. I hope maybe the camera won't pick it up. Who's to say? I'll find out when I'm editing. I have got, I mean, this is actually a really cute story. So like the number one place to like Norwegians meet other Norwegians here is the Norwegian church. It's the long tradition for sailors to have the Norwegian sailors church or seaman's church, which sounds really weird. And there is one in most major cities, and we have one kind of up the road here. And I met a lady there on the May 17th celebration, National sort of Constitution Day of Norway, and I was talking to her about like my move, and I wanted to decorate with all these types of wall hangings that we have in Norway. We call krokkestang, krostersøm, and she was saying that, oh, I actually have a bunch of those in my attic that I was thinking of getting rid of. Would you like them? I was like, yeah, okay. So we just like exchanged Facebook contacts, and a year later she messaged me. I was like, hey, are you interested in them? Here's a photo of everything I have. I can just send them to you as long as you pay for the postage, which from Norway is like basically paying for them. It's a lot. But I was like, yes, please, thank you. And so, let me just show you. So they came all in this sort of packaging here. Do you miss when everyone apologized for the crinkling? Should I apologize for the crinkling like it's 2016 again? So only one of these actually come with the cast iron sort of wall hanging attachments. And that is this one. Oh, I'm gonna have to lean back here to include it. Yeah. It's beautiful, right? Like it's just, oh, this is the vibe. I don't know who made all these. You know, you can thrift these in Norway. I've had a very hard time thrifting because people keep stitching them into like weird fashionable thing. That's like a thing happening lately where they're like stitching them onto like back of jackets or mittens, and it's just become a bit of a fad of repurposing, which is good, but I want these. So this is the only one in cross stitch actually. The other ones are in cloister stitch, but this one is cross stitched. Fun fact, Dana Wolla, also a knitting designer, a friend of mine, had the exact same in a cushion. So that was kind of cool. So we're going to be matchy-matchy from afar. Okay, so now the big ones. I'm going to have to show them sideways. That's not how they're hanging up, but that's how we fit them in frame. So these have like tassels on each side. I have no idea how to actually make it go up on the wall. I guess maybe nails. I don't, that seems like you could break it. I don't, it's like each on their own. I was like, oh, wouldn't maybe be my choice? But then together, I was like, oh, we're going to do a collage. I'm going to do a collage of these. So this one actually only has tassels on one side. There's none at the top, so I'm guessing that one should go on the top. It's just, oh, this one's like giving 70s to me. And they keep getting bigger. That's just kind of how I laid them. So this one also just has tassels at the bottom. And, oh, this is probably my favorite. Oh, it's gorgeous. Ooh, isn't that nice? I trust you guys know how to pause if you want to look at them a bit longer. I have a lot to get through. This is the last one, which is also stunning. Ah, right. So I have a lot of decisions to make, but I think if I can find a way to like kind of lay them all out, I love the idea of just putting them up on the wall above my bed. But I was thinking, I always look at that wall and they both need them, so I'm like, if I split them up, that's gonna be a bit boring. But if I just put one, or maybe I have this other huge one that I could put on one wall and maybe a collage of them on the other. I also have a few in the living room. I got one made for my great grandma. I have, yeah, 3 that I have thrifted, and that's the one that I made. I'll take ideas if anyone have any, but I like the idea of doing a collage with all of them and just go full on maximalist, because right now this bedroom is kind of the opposite. When I decorated this room, I went with just all white furniture, a little bit matchy-matchy, and IKEA, just because this is the darkest room in the flat. It's got great lighting for podcasting, but it's not, it's a north-facing window. It's just one window as opposed to before when I had 3, 2 of which were south-facing. I just knew it was going to be a dark room, so I just wanted to keep it light with adding light furniture, and so now I need to kind of balance that out a little bit, and I think, yeah, putting them on the wall in here will be a really, really nice touch. I don't need to have like really nice statement mirror, but that's the interior plans here. I'm actually curious, how would you guys feel if I discussed more about my sort of home renovation improvements, because I am definitely don't know what I'm doing. I have friends who know what they're doing, so that's handy, but I'm mostly just working on vibes and a very low to non-existing budget, to be honest. Finances have been a bit rough lately, and that's mostly on me because I still have brain things that make it hard to put patterns out there, which is my livelihood. So but yeah, I would like to hear if you guys are interested in hearing about like kind of what I'm doing with this place, considering it is mine as opposed to where I lived before, which was rented and flat shared, and it's where every little thing you do with a shared flat is a negotiation, whereas here I can do whatever I want. So yeah, if you're interested, let me know. I have actually managed to get through everything I had to say in terms of crafting today, so thanks so much for watching and sticking with me. Yeah, it's been a long time since I did one of these episodes. And I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about that in the end, because I am noticing something I don't know what to... I have no explanation. I mean, I guess I've talked a little bit about before, like the difficulties of being someone who has a craft-based business online, and how in the era of AI and algorithms and just big corporations just want to encourage everything being fake, and you're trying to do something real, it's hard. It's just really difficult. You get punished if you take a break from YouTube. You're no longer being put in the algorithms. Even if people are subscribed to you, you just won't show up in their feed. We talked about that before, and people getting burnt out because they feel like they have to put out content, and then it ends up not being the best content, and then they also get punished and not get put in. So it's like, we keep having to do the same thing over and over again, and I don't think we want that in knitting. I like to show that I evolve and do other things, and so when I finally got into the embroidery I've been talking about forever, and I've had people telling me forever it'd be cool to see me do different crafts. Like, I always talked about trying Nola binding, for instance. I've been thinking about tablet weaving lately. By lately I mean the past 24 hours. And then when I finally do, and the videos tank, and I felt like, oh, people don't want to see that, and I kind of felt a bit, took it personally. And then I noticed something very interesting, because like, I have a number of knitting YouTubers that I look to that I'm like, wow, they are so popular. They will always guarantee to get views in the tens of thousands. Not that that's what it's about, but it's just a metric, right? And they are also struggling for views. Like, I'm seeing they got the same view count that I did in the video that I thought tanked, and they are super, super popular. So I'm like, oh, so it's not knitting, it's YouTube. It seems like those of us who are trying to make this kind of, craft, slow craft, authentic type content aren't what big corporation YouTube want, or Instagram, that are trying to push reels instead of being a photo app, like all of this stuff. And I'm not saying this to like sit and complain about what was me, but it was kind of like nice to see that this is actually quite a lot bigger than me. It's humbling. And I think that's part of why I guess prioritize to take a break rather than trying to push out another video that's also like just gonna be barely seen by people who have actually chosen to subscribe and want to see it, because YouTube says, maybe they don't know what they want. And I'm like, I think if people subscribe, they do. But that's how I feel, at least when I have subscribed to things. Like, I get pretty upset when I find out that they don't get shown to me. I mean, that's been a long case for YouTube. You have to go to the subscriber page, not just the homepage, and even then it's not a guarantee, and that's the part that like scares me a little bit. But it's the case with all these platforms. I just happen to be on Instagram and YouTube, and now also Blue Sky. At least I try. And yes, I think like that's kind of part of why I was a bit in my feelings and just decided maybe I'd just not push it. But now I feel like I'm back with the sort of stuff that, I don't know, is my wheelhouse. It's kind of feelings around the changes in the internet that aren't really fully formed, and I guess that's what I was trying to get to, is that I don't actually know yet what things will be, if it's going to be impossible for individuals like myself to run a business online, if we're going to have to really fight for seeing the content that we have wanted to see. Because on my end, I can't decide whether you see what I do. I actually have to trust that you can find the subscriber page, and if you start thinking maybe this stuff isn't even coming up there, to look for it. Like, we're all in such a bombardment of information, and things are overwhelming, and we're all trying to not let the bastards grind us down, right? So I'm finding myself like forgetting content creators that I really, really enjoy. And I miss the time when I just had a chronological feed, and I had my RSS feed of blogs that I had chosen to follow, and I'd keep up with every post, and if I didn't like it, I'd just skim through. Like, I miss that. I don't like being told what to see online and for algorithms to decide, but that seems to be the era that we're in, and it's hard to be chosen by the algorithm and be on the feeds of people who want you there. And that's such a weird dilemma to have, because it's like we have this like big barrier between us that we'd all like to eliminate, and we can't. And so I'm trying to pick platforms that don't do that, like Blue Sky, and obviously Ravelry don't do that, and newsletters, very important. I haven't sent one the whole year. But just having everyone's emails, if crap hits the fan, I can reach out to everyone and just be like, I'm still doing things. And mostly I just announce a new pattern, and I have, oh my days, this is the other thing I wanted to cover. I went through all my finished designs that I haven't published, and we did a whole like run through took a photo of each of them so I could put them in my spreadsheet and see them all, and like put in like little things, the next things I need to do for each of them, like have them tech edited and, you know, go through the write-up and all those things. Obviously photography. And it's so many of them. And so yeah, once I have got around to that and found a new tech editor and things like that, I will eventually start sending emails when I have a new pattern. I find it easier to do that with emails than trying to time it all with a newsletter, with a video, with Instagram and all the things, the different platforms. Like, it's so much easier to just do, you know, one email per published patterns, unless I'm doing several at once, which I do sometimes, but yeah. And then I would just like add whatever else. It's nice to tag along like what I've been doing, or if there's been a new podcast episode. I don't make a newsletter every time there's a new podcast episode. That seems a bit much, even though I say I haven't made like 3 episodes all year or whatever. But yeah, so that's kind of my thinking right now, is like we seem to just rely so much on these more like old school forms of reaching each other until the internet figures out what it wants to be, I guess. And I feel like maybe it's a sign that I'm getting old, that I miss what the internet was like 10-15 years ago. Maybe that's just because I was in that age where things, you know, the brain, whatever. But yeah, I'm trying to think of solutions to problems rather than just like, things are changing, I don't like it. But I don't like it, so. But I also don't think I'm the only one. And yeah, I'm trying up Blue Sky and just like having a very low bar for the things that I put out there, instead of trying to appease the algorithm of Instagram and that mindset, and just think like, I have a funny thought. I think I have said what I need to say about that. So I am getting close to wrap up the video, but let's do a little Embla show and tell for those of you who just love to have a little dog moment at the end of each episode. Oh, she's very sleepy. She's very sleepy. So Embla's got a haircut by yours truly. My mom is an expert schnauzer groomer, but I have not taken any classes. I don't know anything, so I have just been assaulting this poor baby with my one scissor and accidentally made a bald patch on top of her head that, you know, nothing a Sharpie can't fix, but still, it's I can't afford going to a groomer as much as, you know, I should, so we're just making do. So if she doesn't look quite how a schnauzer should look, then that's why. Oh, hey. Oh, do you want to say goodbye to the podcast watcher peoples? Right then, I think I have covered just about everything that I wanted to say in this episode. It feels very good to have made one after so long, and hopefully there will be more to come in the future. Don't forget to leave a comment and a little like and subscribe to the newsletter, whatever, if you want to do that, and I will catch you guys next time. Bye bye.